name is Andrea Lauritsen. I'm a therapist. I work a lot with kids, and so I do a lot of play therapy. So I come up with some book series about feelings, because we have a lot of kids that really don't know how to name their feelings or understand what their feelings feel like in their body, and then how to manage them. So today I've got a few lesson plans or activities that you could implement into your classroom at various age groups or in different ways. I'm assuming that you're going to have the PowerPoint, and so I am going to just read it from here and do some activities for you. So this one's called I Can Choose to Manage My Emotions in Healthy Ways. We all manage our emotions, but we don't always do them in healthy ways, and that's the important part. So lesson one is, what is an emotion and what is its purpose? So that's the goal, to figure out what an emotion is and why it's here. Learning objectives would be to increase one's ability to recognize, name, and understand emotions and their purpose. So one, learn what an emotion is, learn the purpose of emotions, learn what emotions feel like in our bodies. Those are the three different learning objectives. And then the learning outcomes would be increased ability to recognize and name emotions, increased ability to recognize what emotions feel like in our own body, because it's going to be different what my emotions feel like in my body than what yours do, and increased ability to manage emotions. The learning objective number one is, what is an emotion? So I am going to pull a lot of information from my series books. The first one is on naming your feelings, the second one's on managing your emotions, and the third one's on sharing your emotions. So these are just things that you could pull from that book, or that you could just have as highlights, or things that you want to make sure that the students understand about emotions, so that then they can recognize them in themselves. A feeling, also called an emotion, is something we all have inside of us. It's a guide that tells us what to do, what's going on inside of us and in the world around us. It's important for people to know that feelings are not good or bad, they just are, but it's how we express them that makes a difference, that can either lead to positive or negative results. Feelings are helpful tools, and they aren't anything to be afraid of. So the first activity, I'm going to pull, and this is a little booklet about feelings. In the books, When My Feelings Came to Visit, which is the first in the series, I have these feelings that can be used as feeling puppets, feelings on a feelings wheel, and also for this booklet. So I gathered everything beforehand so that it would be quick. First, you want to make sure that you have some paper, and because this booklet we're going to put together, we're going to later use for writing exercise, I chose to use lined paper. I'm going to fold this in half, and then I'm going to take these, and hopefully they line up on my little cutter here. And obviously you're probably not going to have one of these, but I thought it would be faster. And cut them. And then we're going to glue them in this little booklet. So think about how you want this booklet to look when you're done. You could pick different sizes of paper. You could pick different ways to bind it, and the instructions are in my book, so that makes it easier if you get the book. It's available in the Kindle version, as well as, whoops, I didn't cut it straight. That's okay. As well as print version. So the instructions will tell you all the things that you need to have available, what supplies are needed, the steps that you need to take to do the exercise, and then the learning outcomes of the exercise. So pretty handy for teachers, parents, therapists to be able to do an activity. And then you have all your feelings. So you'd want to take, I've got my handy glue, and I'm going to take sad, and I'm going to glue it on the first page, because that's going to put my title, but on the second page. And maybe I will do it so that the lines are going the right direction when you're reading it. And one of those on each page. Let's do a few. And the kids can do this, however they want to, that works for them. I've got scared and I've got happy. And we'll just do those 4 for now. So assuming that you've got all of your feelings in there, and they're kind of in the corner so that you can see them, and then you want to, oh, I thought that was a stapler. So I'm maybe not as prepared as I thought. I was just going to staple mine, but you could punch holes and use string or yarn or something. So that's what I'm going to do with that for right now. And so once they've put together their little booklet and they've got the feelings in it, then you want to have them practice learning the names of the feelings. And they've all got names on them, and then the picture. And so they could just take the book and practice, okay, this is what scared might look like, this is what happy might look like, and then what does that look like for me? And then you want to pair up your students and have them practice talking about how they feel right now, or how they feel about or felt about a specific event or situation in their life during this activity. So that way they're also learning to discuss feelings, which is really important. A lot of us don't know how to do, how do we share our feelings and things like that. So this activity involves a lot of different areas. The learning outcomes would be increased ability to recognize and name emotions. So I wanted to just read a quick quote here. It says, naming what I'm feeling validates the feeling. Validating means recognizing that my emotions are trying to tell me something important about myself, about another person, or about a situation. Validating means I listen to my feelings and do my best to meet their needs. So it's helping children, youth understand that our feelings are there for a reason, and we just need to figure out what that reason is in order to know how to meet the feelings needs, but our own needs. So learning objective 2 is, what is the purpose of our emotions? Each of our emotions has a job or purpose. Emotions help us understand what's going on so that we can manage the situation effectively. In the book, each feeling has when my feelings come to visit. And so you could read sections from the book if you have the book available to you, or just kind of have kids maybe talk about that. From the book, what is the purpose of my emotions? Fear's job is to make us aware of danger so we can get ourselves to safety or ask for help from trusted adults. Mad can move us to action if we use it wisely when it visits. So those are just some examples from the book of what the purpose of different emotions are. Learning objective 2, activity. We're back to the feelings booklet. And then you want to have your students write down what they believe the purpose of these emotions are. All right, so we've got happy. What do you think the purpose of happy is? And scared. What might the purpose of scared be? And just have them write that in their little booklet. And then pair up the students and have them discuss what each person thinks. And if they think an emotion's job is different than what the other person thinks it is, and how different emotion jobs might be different to different people, and that's okay. So that's kind of an exercise where they're writing, which is good. They're connecting an outcome with the feelings, what might the job be, and also discussing with other students so that they can increase their perspective of how just because I feel that way or that's what I think, that might necessarily be what other people think, which is good lesson on perspective for youth. So learning outcomes would be increased ability to understand the purpose of emotions so that students can better meet their needs when big emotions arise, especially. Another quote, what is the job of my emotions? Each of our feelings has an important job to do. Each one has a purpose. It's our responsibility to figure out what our emotions are trying to tell us so we can get help, so we can help our feelings get their needs met in healthy ways. The learning objective 3 is, what do my emotions feel like in my body? And this is a really important thing. I kind of mentioned it at the beginning. What are those sensations in our body that help us know, oh, now I know I'm feeling fear because this is what I know fear feels like in my body. What am I going to do with that? And this takes some practice. Not everyone is really good at it, but we can learn it. These are the highlighted texts. A sensation is a feeling in the body, such as shivery, tense, or hot. Each emotion brings a different sensation, although it's important to know that when sometimes we feel more than one emotion at a time, and so we might get a crossover of some of those sensations. And we can talk about that with kids that have a more developed sense of this for themselves, rather than just kind of beginning to learn. We can learn to recognize our emotions by recognizing the sensations of that emotion, and this will help us know how to respond to our emotions. Getting to know my emotions takes time and practice. And none of us are good at something the first time that we do it. We have to practice. And emotions, getting to know our emotions, it's like getting to know a friend. You have to spend time with it. You have to get to know it. You have to figure out what it wants or how it makes you want to react to the world and things like that. And that all takes time. And that's okay. Also let kids know that their emotions might feel differently in their body than my emotions feel, and that's normal. Your emotions might make you want to act differently than mine make me want to act. So when I'm feeling angry, I might want to slam doors, where when somebody else is feeling angry, they might want to run around the block. Different reactions, same emotion. And that could be because we learned differently how to respond or express our emotions, learn behaviors, whatever was modeled to us about, oh, when dad's angry, he's going to do something productive. Or when this dad's angry, maybe he punches holes in the walls. So different learned behaviors from our family or from our life experiences. The important thing is to get to know your own emotions so you can name them and manage them in healthy ways when they come to visit your body. So, learning objective 3 activity is to choose an emotion. So let's choose discouraged here. But you could pick lots of different emotions, and you want to divide the students into partners or groups of 3, and then have them talk about what these different emotions feel like in their body. So again, they're discussing, they're learning to talk about feelings and be comfortable with that, which is really important in a situation that's not where they aren't necessarily experiencing those emotions. But learning to talk about emotions when you don't have big emotions can then help you know how to do it when those big emotions come. And it's more comfortable because you've practiced it. So all of this is giving them practice and helping them understand these things about their bodies and about their feelings. So you want them to talk about what those emotions feel like in their body compared to other emotions. So maybe you talk about, well, fear feels all shivery like I'm inside a refrigerator. And maybe depressed feels like I want to sleep all the time and I don't want to be with people. And my body might feel like a deflated balloon. So different ways that, and I've got those in the book. You might have students act out what that might look like. So what might it look like if you're feeling depressed? Like, I feel like a flat tire, my shoulders are all slumped, I don't want to be with people. And that's a way to also help them recognize it when it comes, when they have those emotions. And maybe nervous is like, or afraid. Maybe they want to go and hide down here, which is kind of a fun way to understand emotions and play with emotions and get more familiar with them. So depending on your age group or your class style, there's a lot of different things that you can do to implement those activities in your classes. So to continue with this one, the next step would be, again, practice. Have the students pay attention over the next 24 hours or until the next time you have them in class, and then return and report on 3 different emotions that they may have experienced and what that was like for them. So again, they're learning to talk about their emotions, they're learning to pay attention and recognize them, and to be able to name them, because you have to name it in order to share it with somebody else. I felt angry when so-and-so did this thing, or I felt happy because I passed my test, and I felt really bouncy when I was happy. So just some examples for them, and you may want to share with them, or you may just want to leave it blank and have them come back, so that you're not kind of saying, this is what I think happy is like, and then they all think they have to feel it that way. So it just depends on your group, what you feel like would be the best. So when they come back, break them into sessions of groups of 4 or 5, and maybe have them discuss it so that it's a little more of a small group, and they can each take a turn sharing their 3 feelings and what that was like for them. And then maybe ask a few people if they wanted to share in front of the class. So again, discussing feelings, getting comfortable talking about feelings, being able to see that maybe someone else experienced the same emotion but felt it differently or in a different situation. Learning outcomes would be increased ability to understand the purpose of emotions so students can better meet their needs when big emotions arise. So similar to the last one. All right, so now we're to lesson 2, name it to tame it. Studies have shown that just naming what you're feeling, I feel discouraged, I feel happy, can calm you down about 70 to 80%. So when you have a child or a youth that's maybe having a panic attack because of a big test or something, helping them to be able to say, I feel anxious, or I feel nervous, or I'm afraid, will calm that emotion down significantly. So it's really important for them to be able to know the names of emotions and what they feel like, to be able to recognize them so that then they can manage them. The learning objectives for this one is to increase one's ability to manage emotions, large and small. We have them, we have to be able to manage them. So number 1, increase understanding of choice and consequences. 2, understand learned behaviors can be changed. And number 3, learn to apply skills we have to new situations. So you already have the skill, how can you translate it to something new? Learning outcomes would be increased ability to choose our response to emotional stimuli, increased number of healthy skills, and reapplication of known skills or abilities to new situations. Learning objective number 1, choice and consequences. We all have the ability to make a choice. Some people's abilities to choose wisely might be compromised by biology and experience. And if you want to know more about that, I did another presentation on how trauma impacts us biologically and how it affects learning. So you can watch that one and figure out how we might be compromised, how that might compromise our ability to make wise choices. A consequence is neither good or bad, which a lot of kids think when you ask them what are the consequences, they think a consequence is bad. But a consequence is just the result of your action or a choice. It isn't necessarily good or bad, you're going to have both, but it's the natural result of or outcome of whatever choice you made. So if you don't like the outcome, then you can choose make a different choice. And then if we don't like the results, we need to change our choices instead of expecting different consequences. Learning objective 1 activity is we're going to make some strips of paper. And you want a bunch of them. I'm just going to do that many. And then you want to hand out one per student. Write on different emotions. So let's put fear, happy, mad, and sad. And then you hand them out to the students, one per student, and divide the students into groups of 3. And then each person must come up with 3 ways to respond to each emotion. And these can be healthy or unhealthy ways to respond, because I think it's good to talk about both. And then what are the natural or possible results or consequences of those responses? So let's say, we haven't talked about sad. So let's say I got sad, and how might I respond to feeling sad? Well, I might cry. I might ask for a hug. I might withdraw into my bedroom and not talk to anyone for the rest of the night. So those are 3 responses. Not necessarily healthy or unhealthy. They're all pretty good responses. The going into your room all night and not talking to anyone might not be the best, because then maybe someone doesn't know that you're sad and you might not get what you need in order to manage that sad. I talk about in the book how sad is one of those feelings that we often are afraid of, and we think, oh, if someone's sad, I have to make them feel better, when sometimes sad needs to be there, and we need to just sit with our sad for a while. Maybe someone we love has died. Maybe something really horrible has happened, and we need to feel that emotion, and that's okay. So we don't always have to make someone feel better when they're sad, but we can ask how we can help, or how we can support them, or what do they need, and then allow them that space to be with that emotion until they're ready to be with a different emotion. Once each person has shared their 3 ways that they're going to respond, then have the group discuss how they might apply those choices in the best way in a real situation. So I did forget to say the consequences of all. So if I'm sad and I cry, that's a really good emotional release. So that can be a good thing. And then the consequence, it might also alert other people that something might be wrong, or I might be having big emotions that I could benefit with some support. And if I ask for a hug, again, it might open up the opportunity for someone to be able to say, what's going on? How can I help? Or maybe you look sad. And being able to have that conversation. Hugs are great for a lot of people. They can really also 20-second hugs for our loved ones. You can't do that at school, I understand, but they are very powerful in actually calming down our emotional response and being able to help us manage that effectively. So those are some consequences of that. So then the kids can discuss it and talk about how to apply those responses in their real life situation. and maybe they have one, maybe they make one up, maybe they're looking at, well, I've got this test coming up, what if I get nervous, and I have this specific, I'm nervous, that's the emotion, and it makes me feel like I can't breathe, and what can I do with that? And then it helps them learn how to plan ahead a little bit of when these emotions come. They already have a few ideas of, well, how can I respond to that emotion, when it comes? And if they've already thought about it, then when they have that emotion and maybe they're not as much in their thinking brain, but more in the emotional brain, they might be able to say, okay, I remember talking about this. What did I decide would be a good thing to do? It's already in their brain. Maybe that will help them in that situation to be able to have a plan to say, okay, I know I can take some deep breaths. I can calm down. I can tell someone how I'm feeling. So it's good. The learning outcomes for this activity would be increased ability to connect outcomes to emotional choices, which is very important for all of us to learn. So learning objective 2 is I can change what isn't working for me. I have a brochure called The Incremental Theory of Ability and Intelligence. And this brochure talks about how we used to think that our IQ and our learning abilities were kind of set when we were born, and that, if your IQ was this when you were 7, it was going to be that for the rest of your life, and you couldn't change that. But they've actually learned that we can increase our IQ, and we can, if we work hard and we apply ourselves, we can increase our abilities. We can gain skills and increase our biological intelligence as well as our emotional intelligence through practice and work. And so I've submitted that, and you guys should have that available. So you can talk about that with your students and help them to know that, just because they didn't do well in 3rd grade, they can still learn and increase their abilities and their knowledge by practice and by continuing to apply themselves. And a lot of kids don't know that, so that's really nice to help them understand. So the other thing would be, my brain has many parts. All of our brains have many parts. And there are 2 that I specifically talk about in the 2nd book, which is on managing your emotions. And I talk about how we have the emotional part of our brain, which is our limbic system, our amygdala, which helps regulate our emotions. And we have in the front part of our brain, the thinking or reasoning part of our brain. And our brain develops from bottom to top, back to front, left to right. And so the first part of our brain to develop were those automatic responses and then our emotions. And so little kids are still learning how to regulate, because that reasoning, thinking part of their brain is still developing. When you get to teenagers, it's all still developing. A little bit more developed, but if they haven't learned skills of how to self-regulate and how to manage emotions, when those big emotions come, that limbic system is going to hijack their reasoning brain and shut down the rest of their brain and take over. And then it becomes very hard to reason with them, to make good decisions, to manage effectively. So we want to help teach them how to calm that limbic system down, re-engage the thinking brain so that they can make good choices and be able to manage their emotions, catch their emotions when they first start, before they get too big and take over their brain. The next one is, my emotional brain can hijack my thinking when I let my feelings get too big, which I just talked about. The more I practice something, the stronger the pathways are in my brain, which make those things automatic. So this is important to know, that the things that we do a lot are going to create really strong pathways in our brain. And then those things become automatic. So our habits, we've done them a lot. It's like, we've paved the highway. It's I-15. We're good to go. It's going to be automatic. We're just going to go there. I don't even have to think about it. But if that's an unhealthy habit or an unhealthy response, so I had a little glitch as I was recording. Apparently my recording just shut itself off halfway through. I'm going to have to re-record the last half of the presentation. So I'd already done one of the activities, so it will already be done, but we'll work with it. So anyways, I was talking about being hijacked by our emotional brain. So I've been hijacked by the technology, which happens. So the more I practice something, the stronger the pathways in my brain get and the more automatic they are. So the more I walk this pathway, the more it becomes well woven, and so those things become automatic. And the less we use the other one, the more it kind of dwindles. So we're trying to increase our desired behavior pathways and decrease our undesirable behavior pathways. So I'm going to tell you a story about becoming more aware of what are our automatic responses and how are they impacting our life. So I worked with a young man when I was a student when I worked with student athletes at Weber State, and I'd worked with him for about 4 years, 5 years at this point. And one summer he just disappeared for a month. No one heard from him. He didn't answer phone calls or texts. He didn't answer his door. No one had seen him. No one had heard from him. So we didn't know where he was. We didn't know if he was dead or alive or what was going on. And we were fairly concerned. He finally resurfaced literally after a month. I talked to him, and said, "What happened?" And he said, when he was young, his parents would have these drug parties. And the kids would just go into the bedroom and lock the door during the drug parties because that kept him safe. So that's what he had done. Something had happened, or a lot of things were going on, and his automatic response was to just go into the bedroom, literally lock the door, not come out. And I said, that worked for you when you were a child. That kept you safe. That was a good thing. But you have to decide if now as an adult, if that response is going to work for you. If you have a job or you're in a relationship and you disappear for a month, they may not be there when you come back. He's like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. So it was a way for him to become aware of what's the automatic response that I'm engaging in. Where does that come from? Why am I doing that? And is it going to work for me in the future? And he can decide, because he's aware, that, oh no, I don't want to do that anymore. Or maybe today I'm going to do that, but only for a couple of hours. He can manage that because he's aware of where it comes from and what it means for him. And it no longer has to be automatic, but he can make intentional choices, which is really important. So the important thing to know is that we can change our own story. So learning activity 1 is to have students write about an important life event that changed them in some way. It doesn't have to be a big event, but it can be, but just something that changed them in some way. And then have them change that story. So maybe this kid that I was talking about, he writes a story of like, I grew up and my parents were on drugs and they had drug parties and we always had to hide in the bedroom and we were worried that DCFS was going to take us away from our family. Sometimes we were homeless, we didn't always have food. Whatever that story is for that person, they can write about it and then change it. By changing it, they're going to look at, what did I learn from that? How did it help me? How did it strengthen me? So for him, he probably learned what lifestyle was like for drug addicts and said, I don't want that. I'm not going to choose that. He chose to go to college. He graduated. He got married. He became successful in his life because he chose different things. And those challenges that he went through helped make him strong and helped make him motivated to be intentional about the things that he wanted for his life. And so what did those kids in your class, what did they get out of those experiences? They might have learned a skill, they might have gained strength, or it might have helped them grow, or it might have connected them with people. So a lot of different things, but helping them to be able to find the good in whatever hard thing happened to them can be really empowering for all of us. The learning outcomes would be increased ability to change the way we see our hard things. Are they stumbling blocks or are they stepping stones? Either way, it's a rock, same thing, but it's our perception. Is it get in the way? Is it an obstacle? Or is it a way for us to get where we want to go? And then changing the perspective changes the outcome in our minds, which can then change some very unhealthy belief systems about our lives and what we can accomplish. So the second activity is this one that I already did. So it's called a thought behavior target. So its goal is to help us connect the fact that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are connected. So we may have a thought, which leads to an emotion, which leads to a reaction or a response. And how can we change that if we don't want to do that automatic response, but we want to be intentional about what our response is going to be? And again, that's practicing learning how to change which pathway in your brain you're going to walk on and use. So you want to get 5 different colors of construction paper, and you can already have the ovals drawn on or printed on, and have the kids cut them out, or they can draw their own. All the kids that I had do in therapy, they wanted to just draw their own, or they just cut it out random. But cut those out in different size circles, and so you'll have the back page, one color, and then 4 levels of circles. And what this is, it's a target. So you want your target behavior or your target feeling in the center. So I did one on anxiety, and the emotion that you want or the sensation is to feel calm, right? And so the next one I did was nervous. That would be the next level, and then panicked, and then meltdown. So your students are going to pick whatever goal they want. Maybe they're dealing with depression, and so they want to feel happy or safe. And out here, you've got suicidal, and what are the levels in between. So you could use this for any variety of different things, emotions, but what's the target and what are the different levels? And then once you have those, you want to figure out what is the emotion or the sensation at each level, so that you can figure out, so the student can figure out when they're feeling those emotions or those sensations in their body, oh, I'm at panic level, so what can I do? So then have them figure out, well, what's the emotion or the sensation when I feel calm? So maybe that's relaxed. What's the emotion or the warning signs that I've reached the nervous level? And so I came up with sweaty hands and shallow breathing. All right, so when you get to panicked, what might the emotion or the sensation, body sensation be? And maybe they're feeling claustrophobic, or maybe they're hyperventilating, or, something like that for this behavior. And then for the meltdown, maybe they just they're a basket case emotionally, they're inconsolable, they can't reason, they can't make decisions, you can't talk to them, they're over here in the corner, whatever. So I put inconsolable. And once they have that, and they know what each level of emotional response is for those, then we want to help them come up with skills or thoughts to move them back to that center. What is the target feeling or emotion or sensation. So in each corner, they do a different skill set. So for calm, you want to stay at calm. So what helps you stay calm? Maybe deep breaths, maybe just good relationships. I mean, it could be anything, but what's the skill? I'm going to deep breathe so I can stay calm. And then nervous, when you feel nervous, maybe one of the things is you're having some negative thoughts, or I can't do this, or, I don't want to try. And so maybe the skill here would be to change your thought process to confidence of, oh, I can do this. I'm going to take some deep breaths. I know that I've done this before and I can do this again. So changing the negative thoughts to a positive thought. So that's the skill for this level in this target. So the next one was, I put down safe place. So that's a skill that I teach to clients. And basically just having them close their eyes and imagine a safe place. It can be a place that they know and have been to, or it can be totally imaginary. They can be there by themselves or with somebody else, but a place where they feel completely safe. And so maybe when they're in that panic mode and they're feeling claustrophobic and they can't really get out of wherever they are, they can go inward and imagine a safe place, which then can help bring them back to calm and be able to get them out of that panic mode. So that was a skill for that level. And then for the last level, I do have kids that when they're in meltdown mode and, mom and dad are trying to help, or brother and sister are being annoying, which tends to escalate. So maybe that skill for them was to just walk away. I have one kid that has a code word that lets mom and dad and everybody know, I need you to leave me alone. I'm going to my room to calm down. And that skill is when she's at meltdown mode, she's going to walk away and go take care of it herself. For some people, maybe they're going to ask for help from others. But it's whatever they need, whatever skill that they want to engage in, or whatever thought they want to put there. Like I had one student that just put different thoughts at each level. The last one was, this was one that I did with someone that was feeling a little suicidal. The last thought was, I am beautiful. I am loved, which was maybe going to help her come back to feeling good about herself. So it's going to be a very unique and personal target, and that's okay because we want these to be skills and target processes that are going to work for that person. So that's our thought target. Thought behavior target. Learning outcomes for this would be increased ability for self-awareness of emotional responses, and then increased ability to train the brain towards healthy responses. Because again, these are our unhealthy reactions, and we're going to come and use our skill, which is healthy, to get us back where we want to go. So learning outcome 3 is taking what I already know and applying it in a new situation. So transferable skills, it's kind of a code word in business. What are your transferable skills? And it can be the same for our emotions. What are the emotional transferable skills? We each have some strong skills or emotions that we can apply in a new situation, and being able to learn how to transfer them in an effective way from one application to a different one. This activity for learning objective 3 is to have the students find a specific memory with a strong positive emotional reaction for them. So it could be confidence, joy, bravery, whatever they can connect with. And then you want to have them anchor that in their body. So being able to connect it in the body. What did your body feel like? And again, this practicing these skills of what are the sensations when I have these different emotions is going to help them with this, be able to, when when I made the winning touchdown, I felt confident, I felt powerful, my body felt energized. I thought I was thinking happy thoughts. I wanted to be with all my friends and share. So that's the emotional response that they're having. So you want them to close their eyes if they're comfortable with that and really anchor that in their body. And you'll know when it's anchored because you'll see their face will change or their body posture will change. You'll see a physiological change if they've anchored it really well. If you're not seeing that, and if they're feeling kind of maybe they need to think of a different, stronger memory, or have them include more senses in anchoring it. So what are the smells? What are the things that you saw? What did your body feel like? What could you touch? What could you taste? What could you hear? Include those senses, and that's going to help to anchor it even more. And then once they've anchored it, you want to have them imagine a circle in front of them. And you want to step forward into that circle. So you have to decide what that circle is going to be. Maybe you've got a kid that gets really anxious when they have to take a test, or struggles being able to talk to other kids because they're a little bit shy or uncertain. And so you want to be able to help them bring a situation of confidence to that area where they don't feel as strong, that maybe is a weak area for them. And so let's say you've got a student that's a football player but isn't really good at math. He's going to bring that sense of confidence from that touchdown to his math test. And he's going to step forward with his confidence into that math test, which is what he steps into in the circle. And when they do it and it clicks, you'll see it. It'll manifest physiologically. And that can be a really powerful thing to help kids connect someplace where they felt really good and really powerful in some way or emotionally to an area that maybe isn't as strong. For instance, I had a kid that was struggling with sleeping, and we did imagine a perfect night's sleep, and what would that feel like in your body? What would you be thinking? What would you be thinking anything because you're sleeping, but imagining those senses, and then we had him step into a perfect night's sleep. And he said that really helped. So he would practice that at night before he went to bed, and helped him sleep, but he still struggled waking up in the middle of the night. But of course he didn't want to get up and step into his circle. And so I let him know that you can just imagine it in your mind and step into the circle in your mind. You don't have to get out of bed. It'll still work the same. It's like, cool. So just some information about that, and that's called Step Into. So that's what I have for today. Hopefully these activities and lesson objectives will be helpful for you, and they can be applied in a lot of different ways to whatever works for your classroom and your age group. At the end of the PowerPoint, I've got book resources that can be helpful in talking and learning about trauma and how it affects our body and how it affects how we learn, and then also how our brain and our emotions, our reasoning work together in our brain. And then also some book resources that I've done. I've taken most of this from my book series on feelings. The first one should be available on Amazon by the time you are watching this, and it's called When My Feelings Come to Visit. And a lot of the quotes and things were taken from that book. And they're available on e-Kindle and print at Amazon, so that's there. And then the last page is my contact page, so if you have any questions or you want more information, feel free to contact me, as well as the other two feelings books will be available by the end of the summer, so you'll be able to have them. And in the second book I have a lot of different activities that you could do in class. We do calming jars, which could also be feeling jars or meditation jars or whatever, worry boxes, things like that, that I will put together on YouTube, and those will be available that you can watch or show your class or do with your class as works for you. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.